All right, everyone. It's exactly 10 a.m. and we're going to get started. I thank everyone for joining us today. We're actually in our Bureau headquarters physically. This is the first one I've ever done here, so I ask for everyone's patience. If there's a technical issue, we may take a break. We'll see how this goes. Probably in November, we'll find ourselves back at one of the DCA rooms, I think, that we're accustomed to. But for today, just let me know if there's any issues or anything comes up. My name is Justin Paddock. I am Chief of the Bureau of Household Goods and Services. And before we get going, I think I will take roll. I will start with our council members in the room, Mr. Burt Grimes and Steve Weidekamp.
Present.
All right, and then online, Mr. Pascal Benyamini.
Good morning, present.
Mr. Tom Keepers.
I am here. Good morning.
Ms. Sarah Oakley.
Good morning. Present.
Mr. Dan Rhodes.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
And I'm going to check to see if Toby's online. My guess is his flight's running late because he was planning to be here. Toby, are you online with us?
I am online, sir, and present.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So that counts for everyone. I appreciate it. I think before we get going, just a couple of things for folks in the room. If there's an emergency, we have two exits, a door, which I'm pointing so no one online can see, this way and this way to get you out. If anyone needs to use the restroom while we're going, there's a little key card right below that card reader. You just use that. Restrooms are right on the other side of this wall. Water and coffee for anyone in the room. Sorry for those joining us online. Hopefully next time. With that, I think what I'd like to say is Claire and I are really excited that we have very few speaking parts today, and that is because we have a fully staffed management team. So I'd like to introduce a few people to the council for the very first time as managers. In our audience is Mr. Travis Cook, who is the supervisor of our special investigators for the North, and also Mr. Raleigh Jacoby, who's our supervising special investigator for those in the South. Also here at the dais is Joanne Van, who is our content manager, and Eileen Yap, who is our policy manager. And you'll be hearing actually from all of them a little bit later. With that, I think I'll move on to agenda item number 2, but I just wanted to see if Claire wanted to say anything first.
Nope. Do you want to mention reappointment?
Yes. Oh, I made a note and I totally forgot to do it. It came to my attention just a few minutes before we started that there was some question about reappointments to the council. Everyone is reappointed to the council. The formal paperwork will be coming here fairly shortly. But if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'll be working with you in the weeks ahead just to get the signatures and everything done as well. So I just wanted to make a note on that. So with that, I will move on to agenda item number 2. And I think I saw something on the chat about volume. So what I'll ask for those in the room, just sort of project if you can. And you see there's a little microphone. Feel free to pass it around amongst your side of the table when you want to talk. So with that, I will move to agenda item number 2, which is public comment on any items not on the agenda. Please, I caution anyone who would like to speak, if there's an actual enforcement matter, whether it's a citation or some sort of administrative action, you should contact me offline so we can discuss your particular case individually. But with that, I will open it up to public comment. I think first I'll ask for council members in the room if they would like to make any public comments on items not on the agenda. All right, and I'll move it to council members online. Any comments you'd like to make on something not on the agenda today? Okay. With that, David, I don't see any members of the public here at the moment in our room, so I'm going to open it up to comment online.
In that case, we are open for public comment for items not on the agenda. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. For our mobile device users, you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... in order to find your hand. There are 3 different pages and only one of them has a hand button, so make sure you find the correct page in order to raise your hand. For our call-in users, you will need to dial *3 to raise a hand. People will be given 3 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a 30-second warning before your time expires. We're going to take just a few more seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you so much, David. All right, with that, thank you, everyone. I am going to move on to agenda item number 3. And I believe, my notes are failing me, but I know someone from DCA Board and Bureau Relations is on the line, so I will hand it over to them.
Hi, good morning. My name is Karina Moreno of the California Department of Consumer Affairs. Thank you for the opportunity to join you today. I'd like to thank the Advisory Council for your continued service and dedication to protect the consumers. May 5th through 11th was Public Service Recognition Week, and DCA joins in honoring the more than 3,000 DCA Board and Bureau employees dedicated to protecting California consumers. DCA thanks all employees and Board and Bureau members for their service and contributions to consumer protection. Meet and greet with Secretary Moss. On April 30th, DCA hosted an in-person meeting with Secretary Tamika Moss and executive leaders. It served as an opportunity for DCA leaders to meet our new secretary and hear her vision and priorities for the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency and the department. Licensing scam alert. DCA has learned of a recent increase in scams targeting licenses. Though the nature of the scams vary, they are similar in individuals falsely identifying themselves as board employees and telling the licensee they are under investigation. The scammers attempt to gather personal and/or financial information and may even demand payment. Board and bureaus are urged to be vigilant and proactive in providing licensees the tips on avoiding scams. Next is the DEI update. On April 5th, 2024, DCA's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, also referred to as DEI, Steering Committee held its quarterly meeting. The committee reviewed and discussed the member application process, establishing subcommittees, and solicited input from the committee on how to expand language access, workforce development, and advance DEI in 2024. The next committee meeting will be held on July 26, 2024. If you have ideas you'd like the committee to consider, please let your executive officer or bureau chief know. As a reminder, DCA's learning management system has many DEI-related training courses available. Board members are encouraged to participate in available trainings and continue to grow in our DEI efforts. Outreach. Last month, DCA's Office of Public Affairs staff participated in 2 Facebook Live events hosted by the Consulate of Mexico's Sacramento and Fresno offices during its Financial Education Week. Staff presented Get to Know DCA in Spanish and shared a broad overview of consumer and licensing information. In addition, DCA joined an in-person resource event with the Consulate of Mexico in Sacramento. Another Get to Know DCA virtual event will be held with the Consulate of Mexico in San Bernardino on May 14th. The consulates have expressed interest in future event partnerships to share even more licensing and consumer resources. Additionally, in the coming months, DCA will be developing workforce development outreach opportunities for all board and bureau to participate in. I look forward to sharing more information on that soon. Board member orientation training, BMOT, June 18th, 2024. This is a reminder that board members must complete BMOT within 1 year of their appointment or reappointment. BMOT will be offered virtually on June 18th, 2024, and again on October 22nd, 2024. Members can register for this training via LMS. Form 700, thank you. Now the annual Form 700 filing period has ended. DCA and BBR would like to thank our board members and executive officers for helping us to achieve nearly 100% compliance. Again, thank you for the opportunity to join you today. I'm happy to answer any questions from the Advisory Council at this time. If further information or assistance is needed with any of the items shared today, please don't hesitate to reach out to the Board and Bureau Relations.
Thank you, Karina. Any council members have any questions in the room? Any council members online have any questions for Karina? Okay, David, would you mind opening it to public comment?
We are open for public comment on the DCA update. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. For our mobile device users, you may need to hit the ellipses button. That's the ... in order to find your hand button. And for our dial-in users, you will need to dial *3 in order to raise your hand. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you so much, David. Karina, thank you so much. I hope you have a good day. With that, we will move on to agenda item number 4, our business modernization update. Actually, Toby is not here, so you're more than welcome, Jason, to sit, or you can do the podium, your call.
Now I'm standing.
Oh, now you're standing? All right. All right, so I'm going to hand it over to Jason. Thank you.
Can't see anything without these. Good morning, council members in the room, present and online. My name is Jason Piccioni, and I'm the Chief Information Officer for the Department of Consumer Affairs, the Bureau of Household Goods and Services, and the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency. Thank you for having me today. I'm here to provide a brief update on the business modernization effort the Bureau has initiated to bring an improved level of service and efficiency to consumers and licensees with an expanded online service presence. I first would like to comment on the, quote, fun we have had and the awesome participation by your Bureau staff. I say fun because business improvement projects are difficult. Projects like ours are difficult even when most things go perfectly. Staff like Jacqueline Castro, Abra Wallace-Scholl, and Lavinia Peavy have contributed to design, tested and retested, and maybe tested again, while doing the day-to-day operations of this Bureau. Public service recognition, as was stated earlier, was last week, but your Bureau staff deserve Public Service Recognition Month or perhaps year. So thanks to leadership, Justin Paddock and Claire Goldstein for their partnership. Previous updates provided that we began to take online HHM permit applications in summer 23. Our big lists since then have been the conversion and retirement of the previous TMIS system, which occurred in December and January. Data conversion is a tricky business, and though we completed it earlier this year, we still look to refine, improve, and further the HHM applications and system of record. We have since added the ability for online submission of quarterly reports. Aside from the technical ability to accept all the data for the quarterly reports and pay by credit card, the Bureau has created excellent guides and videos to assist licensees with their submission. The progress that we've made, or the success we've had to date with quarterly reports, there is a happy path for our quarterly reports. When someone submits online, pays their fee with credit card online, and their submission does not meet certain tax thresholds, that's the happy path. We can do those with little to no manual intervention, staff intervention. That's the road that we try to achieve. In the quarter ending in March, 3/31, so Q1 24, we achieved just under 50% of that happy path. That's an excellent mark for what we're considering our first quarter go with this online submission. So yay for us. The other side of that is the large percentage that we still have to get down that happy path. And we still have improvements and progress to make in those areas because the back office staff, many who I just announced earlier, still have to do some processing that we want to improve to make those activities easier for them. So big success, hitting near 50% in our first quarter. Still work to do.
Jason,
yes.
could you please clarify the happy path? Kind of lost me just a little bit there. How do you qualify to be on the happy path?
Happy path from my perspective, technical perspective, is little zero manual staff intervention, if that is a possibility. So the process occurs, and whatever the end process of that particular procedure, in this case, the the approval of a quarterly report is done with all online with a computer as opposed to manual staff intervention.
Are there certain factors that would qualify one to be on a happy path versus a more difficult transition?
So I will say the part that I can say honestly, and then I will defer as the happy path from a technical perspective is online submission, one. as opposed to paper.
Yeah.
2, paying your fee by credit card.
Okay.
And then I will defer on the business side of it too, that I don't want to misspeak.
You said something about taxes, though. So, I mean, are you talking about community taxes? Does that take you off the happy path?
And, sir, I apologize. I probably shouldn't have. I'm going to defer to that. I'm saying things that I've heard in meetings. So I'm going to say that I'll be the technical reference, and I'll have my folks help me here.
Yeah. So I think the happy path works for both, and Jason's focusing on the staff, but it also works for the user, right? So for the permit holder, if they are not subject to the UA, what is it called, Jacqueline? The uniform business tax, everything happens automatically. They fill out the form, online, it does the calculations, they pay with a credit card, that's done. It's done from both the user's perspective and the staff perspective. If they're subject to that additional tax, there is a staff review of that. But again, from the user perspective, it's still very streamlined and very simple. And that's the goal with this, is to make it a happy path for both staff, but also for the user. It gets more complicated if there are prior quarterly reports that haven't been submitted. You know, so there are situations that can make it a little more complicated, but the goal really is to make it as simple as possible for both the user and the staff. And that happens in about 50% of the cases already, which is a good beginning. And now I got to deal with the other 50%.
And the only thing I would add is to be in this category of the happy path, it's also making sure that it works for them. So Claire sort of spoke to the back office perspective of we don't have to touch it, which is great for us because it means it's going to happen faster. But also if someone needs to call, if someone gets confused, then we've got to tweak something. And so that's why if basically while you're waiting for your Starbucks, you can do this, we've won. And that's what we're continually aiming for. Yeah.
Appreciate the question. Thank you. So good start for our first quarter. Still work to do, as there always will be. We also stood up a brand new HHM permit search function on the Bureau's website that offers a quick and easy search by CalT number or business name. And I was planning on letting you know that we would be incorporating DBA name into the search fabric in June. I'm happy to say that the DBA was incorporated at the end of April, way ahead of planned schedule. So again, yay for us. We still have a ways to go, always continuous improvement. I know the leadership at Bureau, myself, the staff, et cetera, always strive for the continuous improvement. When we can do it while we're ordering Starbucks, as Chief Paddock said, or in a quick time frame and easy, that's our goal. So we have a ways to go and we're still working. Automatic notifications of key upcoming dates to licensees, email notification improvements for clear communication, the HHM transfer application, further improvements to the existing HHM application, and an online complaint form are pending. The midterm includes license maintenance activities and online HUFD and EAR applications and renewals. One item that I'm also committed to that I've made mention about is the continued improvement or focus on the licensee user experience, on the applicant and or licensee user experience, as well as the back office staff. Your staff work hard, and it's our job to make sure that the technology makes their job easier and not harder, and that's what we're focused on. And so I'm personally committed to that. In fact, I'm going to extend my personal involvement with a meeting upcoming to go over quarterly reports with the staff and make sure that everybody, we're all square on issues and so that we can resolve them. That's my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes, sir.
So the data dump was pretty interesting, what the PUC was holding, because it brought up a bunch of very historic information. So if I originally started as a sole proprietor and had a permit under that CalPeeper, sole proprietor, and then changed my structure and became a corporation or LLC, I would have generally, almost in every case, have a different CalT number. And historically, only the current one would show. But after the data dump, it shows both. And so if I looked up ABC Movers, it would show a permit that was terminated. It won't tell me the time frame. But if I might only see that one, or I could look at the second one and it would show a permit that is active. So can you guys just take some steps to anything that's more than a year outside of having an active permit, at least pull that off the public-facing side? So there's no reason for the public to see that. If you guys need that information or find that information useful, I think that's fantastic. But all it does for the public is confuse. So I would ask is there a way to do that without having to have every single person call in and say, hey, I don't no longer have this permit. I haven't had it for 6 or 7 years.
So what I will say is, yes, this is on our list. This is another one of our search items on our list. I'm not going to go that far because until we hit our statute of limitations, I want a user to be able to see what an entity was until basically you couldn't file a complaint against that former entity. Now, what I need to commit to is making sure it's more understood why it was canceled. So an explanation of, okay, on this date, this entity converted. And I'm happy to do that. And what we also need to do is essentially, it's part of our record retention schedule is when I would pull it off the website. I want to say off the top of my head, it's 3 years, but I have to check. That's what I'm happy to commit to do. And that is on our list. Yeah. Yeah.
So 3 years for everybody off. Shorter than that with an explanation.
Right. And so, and with the one caveat of if it's a revocation, that ain't coming off. But those are very special circumstances. And let me also clarify, because revocation had a different meaning at PUC. I mean an actual administrative action where the permit was taken away. Yeah. Well, we're working on 4, 3. Yeah. We got some coming.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, thank you, Steve.
Thank you for the question. Appreciate it.
Okay, quick question, Jason. I don't know if this is for you or Justin. When will the future online transactions be available?
So for Hufty, so Bert will be most concerned with sort of the Hufty. So the Hufty application, the Hufty renewal, and I think we've identified that as mid-field. So we're basically going to start this year, but I don't think we have hard and fast deadlines.
Yeah.
Basically because we're in the process of sorting that out. I am not answering this well, Jason. I'm sorry. Do you want to add anything?
I think give you a direct answer. I think you'll see some online presence in that area by the end of the project term, which is at the end of this calendar year. Again, the breadth of it, unsure. We're going to look at priorities with the Bureau. They're definitely on the list, as I mentioned. The specifics of them are still to be determined, but I think that we can say that there'll be some level of presence in that area near the end of the calendar year.
Thank you.
And Bert, the reason I was dancing is the thermal insulation directory is, I'll call it a horse of a different color, because it's going to have to be something that DCA and the Bureau work on because it's unique. A lot of the application and the renewal of everything else, so like your furniture manufacturers, your importers, your retailers, that's something that Jason is already accustomed to doing for many, many other programs within DCA. So that's relatively straightforward. I don't know where I'm going to put some of these odd things in the priority list, because I think it's better to get some of the heavy transactions like furniture retailers done first. So that's why I was dancing. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll just add to that, starting out with household movers, the Bureau is also unique in that we have multiple programs with different applications. And I'd like to think we've learned a lot of lessons through the experience with household movers. And so one of the things we're really trying to be mindful of is making sure that the process is working and is smooth for both the user and staff before we send it out. And I think that has meant, it's talked about in the material, that's meant changing a little bit our ambitions of what we thought we could get done in what time frame.
Okay. Can you piggyback off of the household movers?
We should take pieces. Yeah. That's the goal, right? There's some certain information you're collecting that's the same for every applicant, no matter what program. So we want to try to seal the work that's already been completed in household movers to make it. And it's also, for the most part, those applications are simpler. than household movers. So hopefully that'll help the process go a little more smoothly as well.
And quicker.
Yeah. Any more questions? Oh, yes, Steve.
Yeah, just a statement, comment. When, I don't know where we're at in the Connect world, if we've got everybody on board yet, or if we're still doing some outreach, but that when they were talking about scams, I will tell you that movers as a group are of a mindset that no one calls you from a regulator. Regulators don't call you. And I mean, even when on the phone with people helping them get their FMCSA permit, as soon as they push the button, they're getting a call. They say, I got to go, FMCSA's on the phone. It's not FMCSA, don't hang up the phone. Because scammers call you the minute you file a federal permit. And so people just don't answer those calls or look at those as very jaded. So just be alert to that fact.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So this is an excellent opportunity to compliment someone who's gone back to the contractors board, but she was invaluable in this. Her name is Inga Hammond. And so I don't know if Inga's listening today. She is phenomenal at customer service. And yeah, we had a lot of calls with gruff movers, I think I'll call them, Steve, on linking their account. And mind you, we'd already sent them a couple letters that I think went in the wastebasket right away. But we've had a lot of those calls. And I actually think we have a decent capture rate. We still need a lot more emails than we have, but we're way down. We've gotten a lot of information. And I think the other thing to highlight here that Jason didn't take credit for, but I'm going to give him credit for, one, the reason I made that Starbucks comment is we had a problem with being mobile friendly, but that actually got resolved. And so now it's actually really mobile friendly. And then the other thing I would really highlight is after you've done the initial registration and after you've linked your account to your existing permit, this gets a whole lot easier. And Bert, just so you're aware, Tom, Dan, so you're aware, you're going to have sort of the same growing pain once you do that initial registration. But once you get familiar with this, I think it's really going to be relatively easy for everyone. Everyone's going to get an email when they expire. So when Raleigh and Travis are doing their visits, there's not really going to be a confusion about when you expire. Anytime you want your new wall certificate, go online, you can print it. Like we're getting there. Yeah.
One follow-up on that gruff mover comment.
Yeah. I knew that was coming, Steve.
For enforcement staff, if you want to know a green flag that someone's a legitimate operator, if they speak gruffly on the phone, that's because they're busy and trying to service their customers. So
that's fair.
Gruff mover is probably the number one tell that they're a legitimate operator.
And we got a lot of Inga comments from those gruff movers. Any more questions in the room? Any council members online? All right, David, would you mind opening this item up to public comment?
We are open for public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial in user style *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you so much, David. All right, with that, we will turn to agenda item number 5. Thank you so much, Jason. I'm going to turn it over to Suzanne, I believe, at the budget office, or maybe Andrew. One thing to note, I inadvertently left out a 4th page in our meeting materials packet. I'll be happy to provide it to council members. I'll also put it on the website. It's basically a summary of the fund that we're moving into July 1, which is to combine all 3 funds into one. And our budgets office is going to summarize it for you today. I apologize for that oversight, and we'll get it on the website shortly. For those in the room, I do have an insert that I know Claire handed out. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Suzanne or Andrew.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Andrew Trudy, and I'm the budget analyst with the DCA. I'm here with Suzanne Balkas, the budget manager. I want to thank the Bureau and the Advisory Council members for allowing me time to present today. I'm here to present the 23-24 FM8 fund condition. Please refer to item agenda 5, pages 5 through 7 of your meeting materials. The attached fund condition statements are based off the 2024 governor's budget and includes the 2022-23 prior year revenues and expenditures. First, we have the fund condition for electronic appliance repair, or EAR. EAR has a 2022-23 beginning balance of about $3.7 million, overall revenue of $2.5 million, and total expenditure of about $2.9 million. That gives you a fund balance of $3.3 million, which is about 10.8 months in reserve. Next is current year 23-24, second column, with 2024 governor's budget. We have the 23-24 beginning balance of about $3.3 million, estimated revenue of about $2.7 million, and an estimated total expenditure of about $3.7 million. That gives us a fund balance of $2.3 million, which is about 7.6 months in reserve. Budget year is based on governor's budget, and budget year +1 is based on realized. Next, we have the fund condition for home furnishing and thermal insulation, or HFTI. HFTI has a 2022-23 beginning balance of about $6.8 million, overall revenue of $5.0 million, and total expenditure of about $5.3 million. That gives you a fund balance of $6.6 million, which is about 14.5 months in reserve. Next is current year 23-24, second column, with the 2024 governor's budget. We have the 23-24 beginning balance of about $6.6 million, estimated revenue of about $5.4 million, and an estimated total expenditure of about $5.4 million. That gives us a fund balance of $6.5 million, which is about 14.4 months in reserve. Budget year is based on governor's budget, and budget year +1 is based on realized. Lastly, we have the fund condition for household movers, or HHM. HHM has a 2022-23 beginning balance of about $7.8 million, overall revenue of $4.0 million, revenue transfer to Motor Carriers Safety Improvement Fund of $23,000, and total expenditure of about $3.2 million. That gives you a fund balance of $8.5 million, which is about 30.6 months in reserve. Next is current year 23-24, second column, with the 2024 governor's budget. We have 2023-24 beginning balance of about $8.5 million. Estimated revenue is about $3.6 million. Revenue transfer to Motor Carriers Safety Improvement Fund of $21,000, and an estimated total expenditure of about $3.3 million. That gives us a fund balance of $8.8 million, which is about 31.4 months in reserve. Budget year is based on governor's budget, and budget year +1 is based on realized. The three funds will merge effective 7/1/2024. We have the fund condition based on the 2024 governor's budget. 24-25 overall estimated revenue of $11.8 million, revenue transfer to Motor Carriers Safety Improvement Fund of $21,000, revenue transfer from EAR for $1.1 million, revenue transfer from HFTI for $4.2 million, revenue transfer from HHM for $7.1 million. Estimated total expenditure of about $14.9 million. That gives you a fund balance of $9.3 million, which is about 8.0 months in reserve. And I'll turn it over to Suzanne.
Thank you, Andrew. And just to note that the fund will merge in 24-25, and we leave a cushion in the three funds. And if you see that some of in the budget year 24-25, you will have some cushion there. And the reason we do that because we open it for accounting for 3 years in cases there is any PO comes in. And once that finishes, we can merge the remaining, anything remaining, we will merge it into the fund. And the merge is going smoothly. Everything is set and we have no concern with the merge. On page 8 of your meeting material, you will see that in 22-23, you will have the month in reserve is a little bit different, even though it was closed when we did the presentation last time. And the reason is it's based on the calculation that we do. So in 22-23, months in reserve is calculated based on 22-23 fund balance and based on 23-24 total expenditure and expenditure adjustment. And then we'll multiply that by 12. So that will actually change if your expenditure increases in the following year, the prior year will actually change. And we're here to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Andrew and Suzanne. So I think I'll specifically call out Tom on page 8. Tom, I watched our last meeting a couple of times. I think I got closer with this one, but I'm hoping I hit the fairway, but you'll let me know. But basically, I'm just trying to compare sort of differences. I think this will be helpful for the council, but just feel free to let me know. I think what I'll do at the moment is open it up to council comment in the room first.
I have a question. So when we look at each one of these three funds independently, the reserves all show a higher number than when we combine them. It doesn't, I'm lost there.
I think the issue there is when you're looking at the combined fund, you're not looking at the actual and current year, you're looking at the out years. Whereas we're in an odd place because we're in the fund merger, so it's hard to report. We could project the future years for the fund if that may be helpful, but for the most part, that's blank because of the fund merger. So you're looking at out years as opposed to previous and current year.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking with Steve. If we look at the appliance repair,
okay,
BY plus one is 1186.
So, wait, hold on one second. So on electronic appliance repair, are you looking at current year?
Yeah, current year right here. Well, no, I'm looking at the BY plus one.
BY plus one. Okay, got it.
I'm trying to equal that to your BY plus one over here.
Got it. Okay, so
I got 1186.
Right.
Flip over to home furnishings. I got 2289.
Yep.
Over to household movers, 1650.
Right.
I look at this page for the emerging, that comes to approximately 5,000, and up here we got 9,300.
Oh, that is interesting.
And I can
let me do my arithmetic too.
And I can respond to that.
Susan.
So the one you see, the 1,186,000 and the 2,289,000 and the 1,650,000. This is what we are leaving in these programs for now, because as we said, in case you have received the PO that it came in later after the merge, we need to have money to be able to pay these POs. And that is why we leave, this is what is left on these programs, on these funds. And once the fund is, after 3 years, we will take whatever remaining in all three funds and we will put them back into the merger.
Does that make sense?
You have to leave a cushion there. Yeah.
So I forgot about this. Okay, so and they explained this to me, so I apologize. Essentially, what's happening is they're leaving a little bit in the old bank accounts because there's checks. There's still going to be like costs that come in, so they're only transferring over about half the money. And then I want to say, Suzanne, I think we decided 2 years. 2 years out, anything left will get moved back to the new fund. And those will be, you will essentially formally close with the bank those old accounts.
That's correct.
Does that make sense? Yeah. Sorry about that. Any other questions in the room? All right, Tom, let me know. How'd I do?
You did well. You did well, Chief. No, I appreciate that really simplified view. It reflects what you thought was kind of going to happen. And then, I was really interested in what's changed from last time. And so this is a really simple depiction and in the aggregate as well. I don't need to see every line item. If I have questions about the delta, then I'll just follow up with you. But thank you. I find it helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Did anyone else want any tweaks to this document? We've kind of been adjusting at each council meeting until we sort of found kind of what worked. Does anyone else want to see something different?
If we're going to adjust the funds, can we have a summary down here of the combined funds?
Absolutely. Yes. So no matter what, it'll be merged. So I'll have to work on, so July 1, there will just be essentially one fund that you'll get a thorough report on. But what I'll do is we could talk about what the balances are still in the other one, so you can see it over there on the side. Would that work?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you'll see as years progress, like stuff will get deducted out of it. Like I'm thinking like retirement, stuff like that until it's finally done. So, but yeah, I can do that. And I'm just making a note to myself, everyone, sorry. And Claire is also doing the same because I make too many promises in this meeting.
Well, we will, as a budget
Speaking of
office,
that.
as a budget office, we will be actually providing these as well, updated, especially after the budget year closes and we have a prior year adjustments. Of course, these numbers are going to change. So when we're going to be presenting next time, we will be presenting all four. Until then, when it is merging, solid merge for one, then we're going to be presenting one.
Thank you, Suzanne. I think what I'll do is just make a brief comment I hadn't planned on. I actually think the numbers are going to look pretty good. Just something to remind the council. If you've been reading in the news lately, the governor of the Department of Finance is certainly tightening its belt because of tax revenues. Any program within DCA is what's called a special fund. And so we're not actually getting anything from the tax revenues you pay as private citizen. Our funds actually come from licensees, permit holders, registrants. And so we're actually looking pretty good on our budget, but we also need to comply like any other state agency with the various cuts and revisions. I don't know what the specifics of those will be, but they will be coming. And just by virtue of that, we will see additional savings than we normally anticipate. So as you've heard me talk about in the past, I anticipate our traditional reversions, which is whatever we didn't spend for that year, will probably be a little bit higher than they normally were in the past. So with that, I didn't want to cut off anyone other than Tom. I don't want to cut off Tom either. Anyone online who has additional comments on the fiscal item for our council? Any other questions in the room?
Justin, I did have a question just under the first budget presented for the electronic compliance repair. The expenditures is the delinquency fees have gone down, renewal fees are up, but the expenses are, I mean, there's a huge increase in expenses there. Is that a continued thing, and is there a way that we're planning to offset that expense with the difference in renewal fees?
Not at the moment, because as I've said in the past, so there's a couple of things I need to address with the question. The first is, you're correct that expenditures have gone up. For the most part, that just has to do with inflation and the fact that there are raises across the board due to inflation. So we've seen a lot of salary increases, which is really good for staff, but when you will always see it in a budget hit because of the personnel expenses as well as associated retirement pension expenses as well. So that's the main cause. It's not the entire answer, but that's the main cause for why you're seeing an expenditure increase is salary adjustments. And then on the opposite side, about an ear fee increase. Again, I think Tom and I, in about 2 years or so, will have a really good debate about what the fee should be for service contract administrators. Because right now they pay hardly anything, and I don't want that to be the case long term. But outside of that, I don't anticipate at this time fees going up for a few reasons. A lot of staff have devoted a lot of time, and this was part of the discussions I had on the fund merger, to basically implementing the household mover program. And so EAR and HUFTE are both essentially owed for some time for the need to do that implementation. And this is also why in about 2 years, we're essentially going to do an internal audit to see how much time and effort we're spending within the 3 programs, which honestly, I like to characterize as 4 programs, which is sort of the traditional EAR, service contracts, HUFTE, and household movers. And that audit I expect to do in about 2 years.
Understood. I just noticed that the months in reserve for other 2 funds didn't really, pretty flatline, and then a 30% decrease plus to the months in reserve under the one. Just seemed like a
right. I would say And you're always going to see more extremes in the EAR account, mainly because it is the smallest one. So when you tweak anything, you're going to see a larger adjustment. But long term, I actually don't have concerns at the moment.
Okay.
And it's again because I'm cheap. We have reversions each year.
Understood.
Any additional questions from the council? David, I'd like to open it up online. Thank you.
We are open for public comment on 5A. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you so much. Suzanne and Andrew, thank you so much. I hope you have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Thanks.
All right, with that, we will move on to agenda item number 6, which is our meeting minutes. They start on page 10. This is pretty standard, so I think I'll just open it up. Any issues anyone saw in their review, I'll open it up to council members in the room first. Okay. Any council members online have any concerns with the minutes?
Just one. This is Pascal Beniamini. In the my name is misspelled.
Oh gosh, which page, Pascal?
Right, attendees, advisory council members. My last name is B-E-N, not B-A-N. So.
I'm so sorry, Pascal.
No worries. It happens all the time. So.
Such an easy name, huh?
Exactly.
Right, so by way of reference, whenever we make any change to the minutes, in the box where you see sort of our agenda and our meeting materials, we put a new link for minutes in there with the correction of the minutes. If we don't make any changes to the minutes, we just ask everyone to refer to the meeting materials packet. So what you'll see in this particular meeting is you'll see a new link in that little box for meeting minutes. But thank you for that, Pascal.
No worries. It's spelled correctly throughout the minutes. It's just that at the very top. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anything else from council members online? All right, David, would you mind opening it to public comment, please?
We are open for public comment on the meeting minutes. If you'd like to make a comment on the minutes, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of your screen. For our dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you, David. All right, on to agenda item number 7, and I'm going to turn it over to Kelly. Oh, Kelly, you don't need to unmute yourself. It's just the conference phone.
So I need to turn on my camera?
Yes, yeah, if that's all right. Oh, got it.
Or you guys not see me?
Oh, if you can see it, you can go.
Okay, all right. Hello, my name is Kelly Williams. I'm the administrative manager. Hiring continues to be one of the Bureau's top priorities. My presentation is going to focus on Bureau staffing. Please join me by reviewing item number 7, starting on page 22. Since the addition of the Household Movers Program in 2018, Bureau staffing has increased by 44%, going from 48 positions to 69 positions. Between January 2023 and May 2024, the Bureau filled 37 positions. And I'm very excited to report that the Bureau's vacancy rate is now at 10%. The information in your meeting materials was submitted on April 15th. Since then, we've hired additional staff members, which are not reflected in the meeting materials. Since the October 2023 Advisory Council, 2 analysts have been hired to support the licensing unit, which is now fully staffed. An analyst and an environmental scientist have been hired for the laboratory. 5 analysts, 6 special investigators, and 1 office technician have been hired to support the enforcement division. And as of mid-January, our management team is fully staffed. Raleigh Jacoby and Travis Cook have joined us as supervising special investigators. Joanne Van joined us as the Bureau's content manager, overseeing the Bureau's education and public outreach efforts. And then Eileen Yap is the policy manager, overseeing the Bureau's legislative and regulatory workload. The managers will be introduced later in the meeting as well. The recruitment and process data has also been updated since April 15th. The Bureau currently has 7 recruitments in process, 2 special investigator positions that are advertised for the areas of the San Francisco Bay Area, Riverside, Imperial, and San Diego counties. 2 case management analysts that will support the enforcement division, 1 administrative office technician, and 1 compliance lead analyst to replace Shalom Rojas, who's been promoted to a special investigator with the Bureau. We pay close attention to the attrition rate. From January 2023 to present, 8 staff members have been promoted within the Bureau. Internal promotions do not impact the Bureau's vacancy rate because as one position is filled, another position is vacated. 5 staff members retired. 3 staff members accepted lateral positions to another state agency, and 4 staff members received promotions with another state agency. Assuming there is no attrition, once the open positions are filled, our vacancy rate will be down to 3%. Overall, we're seeing a greater number of qualified and engaged applicants. The last issue I'd like to touch on is staff engagement. We are actively working to promote employee engagement. Communication has improved by Bureau newsletters, regular all-staff meetings, and new staff orientations, and also by increasing collaboration among units. Staff have organized Bureau-wide potlucks, and there have been several team-building events. The next joint all-staff meeting and potluck will be June 13th, and the Advisory Council, as well as our DCA partners, are welcome to join us. Does the Advisory Council have any questions? Does the public have any questions?
Yeah, go Steve.
Is it possible to get a revised org chart?
Yeah, it is possible to get a revised org chart. Do you want to see it for positions? What I would do is I would redact staff names and position numbers. Do you need those? Oh, do you? Well, can you talk to me offline? Okay. There's probably a way to get you what you need. Yeah. No, you're not getting those. All right. So Steve is implying he'd like to see what our special investigators look like, and no, he can't. You can see Raleigh, and Raleigh will not introduce you to the rest. It's gonna be a good barbecue, Bert. Yeah, David, would you mind opening it to public comment?
We are open for public comment online. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of your screen. Dial in user style *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you so much, David. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Jacqueline for our licensing update.
My name is Jacqueline Castro. I'm the licensing manager for the Bureau. Before I get started, I did want to mention that with the licensing staff, I'd like to mention that the HGS has included 2 years of data to see statistical trends across all years. Today, I'll be reporting on the licensing statistics agenda item 8, starting on page 26. Within electronic and appliance repair, there was a small decrease in the third quarter total license active registrations due to a decrease in service contract seller registrations. This is largely due to the business closures and/or decrease in locations. Currently, the Bureau is processing EAR applications and renewals received 4 weeks ago. In home furnishing and thermal insulation, licenses decreased slightly in the third quarter with a small decrease in all license types except sanitizers and thermal insulation manufacturers. Currently, the Bureau is processing BUFD applications received 4 weeks ago and renewals received 2 weeks ago. Within household movers, there's a small decrease in the number of new permits issued as of March 31st. This is due to unforeseen issues encountered in the new system that delayed application processing times while bugs were being worked out. I would like to mention that as these issues arise, BHGS is working diligently with Connect to determine workarounds to assist with keeping the workflow fluid. I would also like to mention that permits issued for the quarter ending September 30th is rather low. This is largely due to learning a new system, troubleshooting with cashiering, and deficiencies within pending applications. As time progresses and the kinks are worked out in the Connect system, BHUG's goal is to see an increase in the number of new permits issued. Also, please note that December 2023 does not currently have a total active permits number listed. During this time, the Bureau was converting data from TMIS to the Connect system, which made it difficult to obtain this information. BHUGs is continuing to work with DCA IT to determine if these numbers for that quarter can be pulled. The household mover exam administered continues to have a 92% average pass rate with an increase in total active permits. As of today, in the Connect system, the Bureau has issued a total of 52 household mover permits to date. Currently, the Bureau is processing household mover applications received from 8 weeks ago. This is due to the new system cashiering issues encountered and scheduled time off for household mover staff. 2023 fourth quarter reports received have all been processed, and we are currently working on 2024 first quarter. There continues to be a steady increase in the total quarterly report revenue. However, because of delays related to the transition to Connect and online quarterly report filings for the quarter ending December 31st, 2023, the Bureau is processing quarterly reports received on March 3rd, 2024. Please note delinquent fees for 2023 fourth quarter were waived. Under the quarterly reports received, the revenue collected as of March 31st will continue to increase as the Bureau continues to receive outstanding revenue. Before concluding, I would like to mention once more that licensing is now fully staffed and we're ecstatic. Thank you to our in-house administrative unit, Marie, Drew, and Kelly for assisting with the hiring process. We're currently training our current hire, Caitlin Wilson, in household movers and are aiming to get her fully trained within the next 3 months. This concludes the licensing statistical overview, and I will now turn it over to the council if they have any questions.
No questions, just a comment. The comment, and it goes for all the staff. And this, we are very pleased with the support that the staff offers the licensed movers in all areas, particularly licensing. I haven't seen any issues with enforcement or administration, but appreciate the fact that how responsive you guys have been to us. So we're grateful.
Thank you. Okay, David, I can open up to public comment in the room and or on WebEx, please.
All right, while we wait to see if somebody's available in the room, we're going to take hands on WebEx. Please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of your screen. Dial in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. Seeing no request for public comment, how are you guys doing in the room?
I think we're good. So we'll close that item. I actually forgot to tackle something that's on the agenda, everyone, in the administrative update. So I'm going to circle back to it now before I forget again, and Claire elbows me and it hurts. So one thing to highlight in the administrative update is the fact that we're at a 10% vacancy rate is huge. I never thought we were going to say that to you. So Kelly, again, Drew, Marie, thank you very much, because it's huge. And with that, one thing that I just forgot to tackle was the Advisory Council Orientation and Reference Manual. This is on our website. We made just a few minor alterations with the council's recent appointment. The major alterations are, instead of a 2-year term, we're actually going to go to a 4-year term. That's just so we can do these interviews, fewer times. If anyone has any concerns with that or serving on the council, please just feel free to reach out to me. The only other real significant item that you'll see changed in the manual is we were just more stern with the language about the required trainings that everyone has to do in this 4-year cycle. The main one being the board member orientation training, but there's a couple of others like the Form 700. I'm happy to answer any questions, but what will happen is in the next few weeks we'll be posting, we'll just replace the manual that's online right now with a new one. Oh, I'm sorry, it's already posted online. So I couldn't even get that right, guys. It's already online and available on our website now, but I'm happy to answer any questions on it. So I'll just briefly open it up to council if anyone has any questions or concerns. And with that, David, just because I'm sorry, I took it out of order, I'm going to open it up to public comment just to make sure
All right, we're open once again for public comment online. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial in users, dial *3 to raise a hand. We will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few more seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, are we ready to continue?
Yes. Yep. So again, we'll move on to agenda item 9. My apologies, everyone. I'll hand it over to Jacob.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jake Hager. I'm the Bureau's laboratory manager. I apologize in advance for my long-winded intro here. So there's a lot that's changed since we talked last October. I know all of you have reviewed your packets and know it back and forth, all the lab stats, but you're going to have to hold your horses for a bit. First, I want to start with, well, it's mostly all good news, my whole intro here. So I'm glad to announce that the laboratory vacancy is no longer at 35%. In April, we did 2 new hires, one being the environmental scientist and another being an associate governmental program analyst. Nikki Yu is our environmental scientist that started in April. She's coming from the private industry and she did cannabis testing before, so she's well versed with lab work. And then also Scott, we stole Scott from the compliance unit. Sorry, Shelby. He's pretty well versed on what the lab does. He was handling a lot of the lab failures before. And he's also really well versed in our core key personalities throughout the lab. We have a lot of them. So another topic that seems to keep coming up is our contracts and purchasing in the lab. We have a lot of moving parts. The main thing being our accreditation. We have 2 accreditations, one for the home furnishing and mattress side, and then one for the thermal insulation side. So this year, in October 8th to the 9th is kind of what it's planned for right now. It's kind of tentative. That's when we'll have our on-site accreditation by NAVLAB, the National Voluntary Laboratory Accreditation Program. And then we should be wrapping that up by the end of the year. And then the year after that, we'll be back to IAS for our home furnishing side. So I talked about a lot of moving parts. Sue Robinson, our contracts and purchasing liaison, is probably tired of dealing with me, but we have a bunch of different accreditations. We have gas vendors we deal with, calibration laboratories, contracted testing labs, and different laboratory consumables. We are finally back on track with a lot of our calibrations and just really the contracts in general. So the big thanks to Sue Robinson. She's going to get a shout out later on too, because there's another part that comes up. So I talked about this last advisory council meeting too. but the January 2024 Directory of Certified Insulation Materials was posted in January. And the directory basically lists a bunch of different insulation materials that are listed in Title 24. It's a lot of blankets and battings, really a lot of stuff that goes in your homes that you're probably pretty familiar with. If it's not in the thermal directory and it's listed in Title 24, it isn't supposed to be sold in California if it's not listed. So to piggyback on that, the Bureau did remove a few manufacturers from the directory. We also notified the California Building Standards Commission and the California Energy Commission of the removal. And the reason they were removed was for either not paying directory fees on time or licensing fees. The license might have lapsed when we were doing the thermal insulation directory and they didn't respond back. The next thermal insulation directory will be coming up sometime in between June and July. And there will be emails going out about that pretty soon. And then also for an outreach portion here, the Bureau virtually attended the 2024 International Association of Bedding and Furniture Labeling Officials, or IABFLO. The conference was in Portsmouth, Virginia on April 23rd to the 25th. The conference consists of regulators and industry members. It's kind of the purpose of the conference is to kind of create uniformity of enforcement, testing, and terminology between the state and federal regulators. And also during the conference, Vice President Paddock ran for president of IABFLO. It was a really hard and close fought race, but he came out on top. So now you'll probably see him change his signature line pretty soon to president of IABFLO. He's very proud of it. So the 2025 conference, and President Paddock will be sending this out. It is in San Diego, California, sometime in April 2025. Is that right? Okay, cool. It's cool when I can just turn over and kind of check with you that that's when it is. Awesome. And then also another thing that I'm really excited about, Kelly kind of touched on the team bonding, the team building. I don't know if this is team building or if it's just working with each other because we work in the same units, but enforcement, policy, and lab have been working really closely together to kind of redefine the Bureau's enforcement actions when sample fails in the lab. We've also been discussing different ways to make sampling efforts a little more efficient. So in the fall, actually every unit is going to be involved in this. Policy, admin, licensing, enforcement, and lab will be meeting with DTSC or the Department of Toxic Substances Control to discuss how to make online purchases from online retailers. And the hope is that we'll follow DTSC's program and their model to pull from these or online retailers without getting like government graded samples. So stay tuned for that. And then since the last advisory council meeting, the lab and enforcement took a couple of wonderful field trips to thermal insulation manufacturer production lines. And we did some unannounced on-site inspections. So during these inspections, we pulled thermal insulation samples right off the line. So we kind of got the best possible representation that's being sold to consumers. And those are currently being tested now. And I'm not done yet, sorry. So another thing, and this relates more to the thermal insulation side, licensing policy and the lab have been kind of working on updating the thermal insulation application and the whole process really. The application is a bit outdated and we're just trying to come up to terms with the generic insulation types. So there's a lot less questions with the industry when they're asking to add things to the directory. And then lastly, for cooperation between other units, is Eileen. Eileen's been working really hard on her Hufti regs. I don't know if anybody's read them other than Bert and Pascal probably. I know Steve's read them a couple times, but those are kind of a mess. And she's doing a really good job of just kind of like streamlining it and making them like, I don't know, that you can read them because they're pretty hard to read through. And she also shared this proposed language with the industry on the first day of advisory council. And I'll kind of like let her talk about it more because she's probably well versed in talking about regulations than I am. I just kind of read them from time to time. So last thing, and I promise this is the last thing, I want to touch on the implementation of Assembly Bill 1059. This is, I'll just refer to it as the fiberglass bill. The main focus is for mattresses, it seems like, but it would affect all of the Hufti regulated industries. So it'd be the juvenile products, upholstered furniture, and then mattresses. Thermal insulation is kind of exempt because it's not textile fiberglass. Really what this bill does, or when it was passed, was in October 2023, and it's going to become effective January 1st, 2027. And the bill, and I'm just going to read it verbatim, sorry. The bill would prohibit a person from manufacturing, selling, offering, or distributing in commerce in the state any new not previously owned juvenile product, mattress, or upholstered furniture that contains textile fiberglass. And then it also prohibits custom upholsterers from repairing, reupholstering, recovering, restoring, or renewing any mattress or juvenile product, upholstered furniture, or reupholstered furniture using a replacement component that uses textile fiberglass. What we're really seeing it in is kind of the barrier materials in mattresses. But it seems like the industry's getting away from it, but we still see a few every once in a while. So I know that was a long-winded intro, and I just want to ask if there's any questions so far before I jump into these lovely statistics. Silence is acceptance, great. Okay, so statistics for the lab statistics start on page 30 of your packets. And I'm actually going to turn the page here too. So we're starting out here with the Technical Bulletin 117-2013. This is California's smolder resistance test of materials used in upholstered furniture. It's a little tag on the bottom of your chair. It's that in the law label. So we've also opened this up for the past 2 years, so there's a lot more numbers here, so you can get a better representation of what's been going on since 2022 and the trends that we're making now. So over the last 8 quarters, we're around a 99% pass rate. The numbers do look a little goofy, and this is because of the quarter ending with December 31st, 2022, had one non-inconclusive sample, just basically meaning that we didn't have test results for, or we couldn't say that it was a pass or a fail. We needed to get a follow-up sample. And then also there was 3 inconclusive samples for the quarter ending in June 30th, 2023. I think I'm getting my months right. That also had the inconclusive samples, so they're not going to be counted as a pass or a fail. So there's going to be 5 there total, or 4 there total. Sorry, I can count, I promise. So if you're looking at the overall results, it would be 106 to 110, and that's just the 4 inconclusive samples. So they do not affect the pass rate. So if we go to the next table here on page 30, this is TB117 failures broken down by manufacturing locations. Most of the, or all of them, these past 2 years have been coming from outside the US. We don't really see a trend. There's not really enough failures to really be like, hey, something's going on here. So we're just, TB117 seems like everybody's pretty much on the same page and passing the test. So moving on to page 31, the really exciting test here. This is 16 CFR 1633. This is the federal government or the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission's open flame mattress test. So this is the most explosive test, I would say. Okay, that didn't go over as well as I hoped. So, over the past 2 years, mattress failures have been hovering around a 35% failure rate or a 65% pass rate if you're looking at glass half full. This failure rate was really concerning in the last council meeting. And I believe Don Lucas was the one who brought it up, that we should have more coordination with CPSC, and that was noted. We've been having regular conversations with CPSC. They are seeing a very similar trend in the uptick of mattress failures. It's a lot more than both of us really expected. Their numbers are going to be different than ours because they do more targeted inspections than we do. We do more random pulls, but it is around the same number of failures. They have, I think, a little bit more than us. And we also have been talking to them a lot about Assembly Bill 1059. And since this is California banning it, the federal government doesn't really have part of this yet, or ever maybe. But we are expecting more failures to come with the ban of textile fiberglass. We do see it every once in a while. I think we have 1 or 2 mattresses that came in the past couple months that had it. But again, it doesn't go into effect until 2027. So hopefully we can kind of fix this trend before we get to that. So after talking to CPSC a lot more, the Bureau is kind of reassessing how mattress sampling should happen, and also compliance efforts we're taking. So we're looking into doing more targeted polls with a little bit still random polls as well. The targeted polls would be more towards consumer complaints, industry complaints, and then also like new trends we're seeing. So if there's like a new mattress type that's coming out, and then also following up with bad actors. We do have a history of bad actors, so we're on the lookout for you. There's a lot cooler in my head too. So the mattress numbers are a bit lower than what I was hoping for. In October of last year when we did the advisory council meeting, I think I said I want to be around 80 per year. We're not quite there. I have a ton of excuses that I'm going to talk about right now of why we aren't there. So the lower numbers are stemming from multiple reasons, one being contracts. That's really the biggest one, and I'll touch on in a second. We also have weather issues, staffing and vacation. We also shifted focus from testing to doing more regulation updates while our calibrations were out. And then also hiring and training new staff. And the new staff members have been fantastic. So thank you for my whole team and everybody else. It's you guys are doing great. But the biggest factor for the lower mattress test was the calibration contracts. I'm going to try to shorten it and not be as frustrated here. But we went with a new vendor, and it turns out the new vendor said they could do a job that they couldn't. So we had to revise the contract, and then we had to send it out to the original vendor. So now the original vendor that we were with for multiple years are now doing the calibration. So thank you to Sue Robinson, Sue Zhu, and then also the contracts at DCA for dealing with me. And I'm mixing up my notes here. Okay. And then for the second table here, it is manufacturing locations broken down for testing failures. So it's pretty much across the board. There was a lot more failures in the US than there was outside, and this was mainly due to most of the mattresses we were testing were from US manufacturers. It just happened that way. But it seems like across the board, there's a lot more failures than what we were really hoping for over the past couple of years. So turning to page 32, this is when we get into thermal insulation. This is another very high failure rate. It's about a third of thermal insulation samples are failing. Mostly are failing for R value. So that's on the bag when you buy insulation, it says like R32. That's how well it insulates your house, basically. So with this and mattresses, we're starting to shift focus more towards thermal insulation and mattress compliance and testing. So I stated this in the last meeting that in June 2023, the lab implemented a new protocol to get samples sent to us twice a year. So it'd be in June and December. Basically around the time that we're doing thermal directory, we're going to play with the dates a little, but we are getting more samples in than what we previously were in other years. And it seems to be a more steady workflow for thermal insulation. We can kind of get a better representation of the industry too. So for all the products that failed, you might see here that they're all from the US. This is mainly due to most of the manufacturers that are in our directory are actually in the US. There's a couple in Canada and Mexico, but we don't really have many that we deal with that are selling into California from overseas. So the next table here is on page 33, or next set of tables is bedding testing. This is also, this is for finish size and for net weight. So on the label, you'll see a little, for bedding and mattresses, you'll see a little part there that says finish size, and it has something in inches, and then it'll have net weight, which is basically a weight. And that's on any bedding and mattresses. So these have a relatively high failure rate as well. I know I promised that we were going to be releasing guidance to the industry. I haven't forgotten. We're still working on it, but there's a couple other priorities that came up, like the mattress program and just kind of a lot of like clerical stuff in the lab and a lot of shifting. So I'm still working on it. I can't give you a date of when I'm going to have that stuff out. It might be after regs, but the regs should also help a bit too. If you are looking at the second table here, which is manufacturing locations of the testing failures for bedding and for bedding testing, most of them, well, it's pretty clear across the board that everybody doesn't really know what's going on, and I don't really blame them. I don't think there's been ever really any guidance that's been provided to the industry, and that's kind of our fault in the lab. We are still working on it, so just kind of bear with us. And now, oh, shoot. Okay, turning to page 34. This is the laboratory testing totals overall. This really just has the bedding, furniture, mattresses, and thermal insulation here. We're not including any information on the flame retardant chemical testing or labeling here. This is just the actual testing totals. So overall, we're sitting at 77%. The 77% is kind of brought up, I would say, by the furniture side. With 99%, and most of the samples are being tested are in furniture. So we are going to try to shift focus more towards the mattresses and the thermal insulation sides here. Okay, so trying to speed through it here. We have the next page, we have 35, is our flame retardant chemical labeling and testing. The first one here is just for that flame retardant chemical statement that's on the law label. So if you're checking the yes, it contains flame retardant chemicals, or the no, contains no flame retardant chemicals, or maybe you're just leaving it blank like we kind of run into here if you look at the chart. Overall, it's a 96% pass rate. There's a couple people who are confused that they don't know they have to check a box, but nobody is checking any added flame retardant chemicals anymore. The failures are just coming from no box checked. So on the next page here, on page 36, this is the actual testing that's done by the Department of Toxic Substances Control. As you can see, there's a couple zeros there. That's kind of there's multiple reasons for this. One was the lapse of contract for DTSC and us. It's now back on track, and we are starting to send testing. It was done actually before the last quarter ended, but the Dorky lab manager didn't send out the samples in time before I left for vacation. So those are going to show up the next time around. I promise we are trying to still do DTSC testing. So,
Jacob, how many went out?
I think it was 5 samples last time, yeah. And all of which passed, so that's a really good sign. So as you can see, most products are not containing it. Every once in a while, we'll find a rebonded foam. That's the most common that we're finding. Rebonded foam is basically a bunch of different pieces of foam that are kind of bonded together, and there's adhesive with them. It's like using shredded foam, and there's just a bunch of different factors that go into it. But we do find that's one of the higher failures, or can have a higher failure. Now moving on towards the label review section. This is probably the most interesting section, and it has our lowest pass rate. So I'll go a little slower, and I'll try to explain the different degrees of failure. There's 4 different results. There's the pass, which a pass basically is like, hey, you did a great job, get a pat on the back. You read the regulations, you know what's going on. There's nothing wrong with your label. What we do too is we send a pass note, and with the pass note, we'll send a reimbursement letter, basically saying how you can claim your prize of reimbursement. So that one's pretty easy to explain. Moving on towards the minor violation, this is pretty close to what a pass is, but it's usually smaller violations, like you spelled something wrong, like, oh, Jim put 3 T's in cigarette. Like, okay, that would be more of a minor violation. Or if you didn't put pad on your polyurethane foam pad, that would also be a minor violation. With minor violations, you'd still be reimbursed, or the business inspector would still be reimbursed, and you'd also receive a pass note, but we'd give you basically this really nice letter telling you exactly what's wrong with your label so you can fix it for the next time. We do have a record of all this, and if we keep seeing the same violations, we'll definitely be talking. So moving on towards our meaner violations, a little more daunting here, is our moderate violation. This means that your label had something that was wrong with the label that was of concern or deceiving to consumers. So currently, we have percentages. So for example, if your label says that you contained 80% polyurethane foam pad and 20% polyester fiber batting, but when we break apart the sample, it's more of a 50-50 split between polyurethane and polyester, we would be sending you a moderate violation, basically stating, hey, your percentages were off and it was deceiving to consumers. We would send a non-reimbursement letter basically telling you that you're not going to be reimbursed for the product. And we kind of go about our day. It's more considered a fail than it is a pass. And the worst violation is a major violation. There are a lot of major violations still. Most of the time, it's something that fails TB 117. That's one example, or something's just missing a filling material altogether. So if you are selling a product and you don't list that there's a latex foam pad in there, and somebody buys it and is allergic to latex, that's the big concern, is any allergies. So in this case, the lab would be sending off the whole case to compliance and enforcement to seek action against the company. And then I think like Alder or anybody else can kind of speak more of that. I just like sitting in the meetings. Really fun. And as you can kind of see, the label results, we only have 21% of products that have nothing wrong with the labels. So that means no spelling errors, nothing. They just do it exactly the way it is in regs. And then 26% have minor violations, spelling errors, anything like that, as I discussed before. And then 38% are moderate violations. This is where most of the violations are really. They're mostly moderate, so they're not going to be getting reimbursement. And then 15% of all products have a major violation. And most of the time, these products that have major violations aren't even being picked up in the first place. So if they don't have a registry number, that's another major violation. So they wouldn't be factoring into our statistics. So about 53% of products are not being reimbursed at all. And that's including the moderate and the major violations. Now, to address the labeling results, there's definitely a serious problem with labeling. And while we're updating the regulations, which should help a lot, but I don't think it's going to fix everything. We've kind of come up with a couple different ideas, one being the fillable labels, and maybe Eileen will speak of this later. But this would really help companies, I think, and just anybody that's trying to get into the space to really understand what they have to do. There's a lot of statements on the law label that really don't change, like the under penalty of law statement, the certification statement, the flammability statement, and the flame retardant statement, other than checking that box. Those are the 4 sections that never really change. You'd just have to fill out your all new material section and then also your registry number section. So that would, I think, really help, and it's something that we're really eager to do in the lab, and also providing a lot of guidance once these labels and the regulations are updated in the future. So that's all I got here. I'll open it up to council comments and questions.
Are you kidding me, Bert?
Overwhelming.
You always ask me questions.
I'm out of breath, so I'm good with it.
That is like a huge compliment to Jacob. You always ask me questions, Bert.
No, not anything really.
All right.
A lot to digest.
One other thing I forgot to mention, Travis, our Northern California Supervising Special Investigator, has been having conversations with the Division of Investigation about sting operations for household movers. But an interesting thing came up that that we can actually probably use a tool we didn't realize to make online purchases. And so we're starting to explore that now. So I just want to thank Travis as well as DCA's Division of Investigation, because I think we've got a way to start making some online purchases of furniture, and we're excited about that. And Toby.
Justin, sorry, I think as you and I previously discussed, I have a hard stop in 3 minutes and I've got to go. So I apologize to my advisory council members. I did send you, pursuant to your request, in your email an update on House Bill 2210. I noticed it comes up on the agenda last, the legislative section. So that is in your email if you guys want to update that bill during that section.
Perfect. I'll make sure to read that out, Toby.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And
Thank you,
I hope
guys.
you have a good day.
See you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other council members online?
Yes, this is Pascal. This was a wonderful and thorough presentation. Thank you so much. I do have just one comment, not really a question. When on the label review, and because of the overall results were not as favorable as the other tables, one request there would be, as the Bureau is, working on updating FAQs and what have you, it would be really wonderful if you can lift examples of law labels that have passed with minor, moderate, and major violations. If you could give like a few examples of each by, redacting the name of the, the store or manufacturing question, that would be really helpful for the industry.
And just to clarify, Pascal, you'd like that online, like for the public, and for companies to be able to reference?
That's right. So for example, when you're doing FAQ, you say, okay, this is a law label that we want folks to use, right? This is a pass. But these are the ones that we've seen with minor violations, with moderate violations, and with major violations. Just examples of what would constitute. And if it's too difficult to do that for the public, I would ask at the next council meeting if we can just see some examples with proper redactions.
Got it. And then also, Pascal, when Eileen is giving her update on item 12B, I would keep that in the back of your head because we may have a nice solution for a lot of, especially small manufacturers as we're working on our label regulation. But I don't want to steal our thunder.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Again, wonderful, thorough presentation. Thank you.
All right, can I open it up to the public?
All right, we are open for public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of your screen. Dial in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And as a reminder, you will be given 3 minutes to speak, and I will give you a 30-second warning before your time expires. Our first request comes from Tom Distra. I hope I said that correctly. Bear with me just a moment. I'm sending you a request to unmute your microphone.
I'm a furniture manufacturer and also the chairman of the BIFMA flammability subcommittee. I have a question about SB 1019 label. Currently, there's a checkbox on there that we can indicate that it includes flammability chemicals or does not include flammability chemicals. This is a direct conflict with AB 2998, which requires that we do not include flammability chemicals. I'm wondering if there's any work being done to remove that conflict so that we would not have either change the label so that it would just say that it complies with AB 2998 and does not include chemicals, or if it would just be SB 1019 and would indicate that it does not include fire retardant chemicals.
I appreciate the comment, Tom. This is Justin. There's a couple of things here, and I'm essentially in the comments I'm about to make speaking on behalf of the legislature, so I will do my best. But that particular provision is in statute, so the Bureau itself can't make a regulatory change that would have effect here. But I'm happy to talk with you, Tom, offline and with anyone you'd like with BIFMA about how to pursue any change you may want. But it would have to be a statutory change with the legislature. But with that being said, I think the rationale, and again, I really need to underline, I think the rationale is by keeping the checkbox, we're making sure everyone's doing their due diligence, that nothing is added. And I think that is the rationale. And so if we wanted to move away from that, I think it'd be a difficult discussion at the legislature, but I can certainly sort of walk you through how you go about doing that. And I'm happy to set something up in the next few weeks.
Okay, that sounds good. It does confuse our customers though, because we do have some people that think they want it in there as a safer product for some environments. So it is confusing. Thank you.
Got it. Perfect. Well, so yes, I'll reach out, Tom. I'll reach out in the next week with you to set something up. And then another thing to think about before we have the call is if you can think of any guidance you'd like us to put on the website, I'm happy to talk about that as well.
Okay, thanks.
But thank you for the comment.
You're welcome.
And it appears that was our only request for public comment.
All right. I think I've been told it's probably a good idea to take a break every 90 minutes or so. So I think we'll take a break till 11:45, and then we'll come back for all the enforcement update. Thank you, everyone. We'll mute in here, and we'll be back at 11:45. All right. It's 11:45. I think we'll get started.
By far the most fun stuff. I missed that.
And then Drew, do you do the slides or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then, all right, with that, all that wants to see the slide change, it's all yours.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Alda Aguirre, and I'm the enforcement chief over the enforcement program. And before I get started, I'm going to introduce or actually share a little bit of information about our enforcement program. Our enforcement program is comprised of 4 units. We have our compliance unit, which our compliance unit handles desk investigations and is led by our manager, Shelby Nordman. And then we have our Northern California team, led by Travis Cook, our new supervising special investigator. Then we have our Southern California team that is led by our supervising special investigator, Raleigh Jacoby. And then we have our case management team that report directly to me. And we divide our territories between the Northern team and the Southern team. Basically, we have a line through Kern County, but coming up, or I'd say June 1st, we're going to change those boundaries so that we have a more even distribution of our cases between the Northern team and the Southern team. So we're adjusting the boundaries so that our Northern team covers counties above Kern County and then along the coast down to Ventura County and Northern Los Angeles County. But before I get into our investigation highlights, I'm going to introduce Travis Cook to give a few words.
Alda. I don't quite have the comedic relief that Jacob did, so just bear with me. Yeah, I'm Travis Cook. I'm the supervising investigator for the North. A little background on me. I started in law enforcement. I was in law enforcement for a long time. Started with patrol, worked as a detective and as a agent on a state narcotics task force. I went to the state. I started with the dental board as an investigator, and then I came here as a supervisor. The staff is great. We have good investigators. Since I've been here, I've been out on sweeps. I've been out with Jacob in the lab, picking up thermal insulation at places. And I look forward to doing stings with them. I also hired 3 new investigators that will be starting in the first week of June. So we're excited about that. And we're getting close to having full staff investigators and working with Raleigh down south. We look forward to doing a lot. I have extensive experience with undercover work and stings, such that we'll be doing for movers. And I look forward to working with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'll introduce Raleigh Jacoby, who is the supervising special investigator for the Southern California team.
Thank you, Alda. Good morning, everybody, council members here and online. Raleigh Jacoby. So I started with the Bureau when it was Bear Rufty. You guys are familiar with that. So I'm one of the original field reps, promoted to SI and now supervising special investigator. So been working with all the units with our SI team. Jacob, thank you. It's been fun working with you in the field. We'll do more of those in moving forward. So as Travis mentioned, I also hired 3 special investigators. One will be starting in June 3rd and 2 more after that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raleigh. So as you can imagine, Shelby and I are very excited to have 2 additional managers to help us with the caseload. And the whole team
is excited to have somebody on board for our case management team. We currently have one position filled in that unit, and we have Blanca Aceves, who's been doing a great job scheduling citation review conferences and handling a lot of the certified mail we're sending out, like citations we mail, also the incoming mail for citations, reviewing the citations that come in, and also just keeping our logs up to date. It's amazing to have all this help, so we're very excited. So in total for the compliance unit, there's 3 positions that would be in that unit. We currently have 2 vacancies. For the compliance unit, reporting to Shelby Nordman, we have a total of 11 staff, which includes 2 AGPA positions, 8 staff services analyst positions, and 1 office technician who's shared with the administrative unit. For the Northern California team, Travis's team, we have 10 filled special investigator positions that report to him. And for the Southern California team, we currently have 7 positions filled for that team, leaving us with 3 vacancies. But as Kelly mentioned earlier, there is a posting for those positions to be filled. And sorry, Steve, we're not going to give you pictures of our staff, but thanks for asking. All right, so I'll go on to the investigation highlights. So I'll start with our Attorney General referrals. Since the last advisory council, we have made 4 Attorney General referrals. 2 of those were household mover cases, 2 were electronic and appliance repair cases, and all 4 were for revocation. Next, I'll go over cooperation among agencies and partners. We've continued our work on the task force meetings in San Diego, San Bernardino County, also Riverside, and we had one of our investigators in Central California, in Kern County, Kirsten Andreasen, who created she actually reached out to the Better Business Bureau and a few other agencies, and they had a meeting to create a task force in Central California, which is something we needed, so that other agencies can attend and we can share information about cases and strategies, and also discuss trends that we're coming across. In addition to that, we've been in collaboration with the Better Business Bureau to discuss some of the cases we're investigating. We don't share information, but they provide information to us. Specifically, they provide a lot of ownership information. So sometimes businesses provide information to them about who's running a company, which really assists us in our investigations. So we're really excited about continuing to build that relationship with them. We've also had a workshop that was presented by CMSA to discuss industry trends. Steve provided that workshop to our team, so our investigators from both the North and the South attended that workshop. And he shared a lot of information about some of the practices for movers that really assist us in the investigation, some of the things to look for, and some of the trends. So, and I'm on page 40, but now moving to the bottom of page 40, where we're going to discuss the Memorandum of Agreement with the Federal Motor Carrier and Safety Administration. I'll refer to them as FMCSA. So we've been working closely with them. We've kind of set a reset with our relationship with them so that we can start building a little bit more of, I'd say, procedures so we can start addressing some of the interstate violations. They provided training to all of our new hires over the last year and a half, I think it's been, on some of the laws, how to access their system, and we needed that training so that we could access their system. And now when conducting an investigation, staff from both the compliance unit and the special investigations unit can go into that system and see information on a carrier. So there might be a trend where a carrier is maybe doing something in another state, and we can review that complaint when we're investigating ours to get additional information. But in addition to that, our management team for the enforcement program has met with FMCSA. We're reviewing their tables, how they're applying some of their laws, and some of the citations they're issuing and some of the fines they're issuing. They've shared a lot of their information, their processes, procedures, and tables so that we can develop our processes and procedures. Eileen Yap has joined us in those meetings, and it's been really enlightening, but it's been helpful so that we're able to connect with partners of other states who might be doing the same thing. So as you know, with household movers, a move might start in another state and then come to California, or from California to another state. Having this relationship helps so that both states are working together and sharing information. So next, I'm going to take you to the top of page 41, where we discuss sweep and sting operations. Since November, from November to March, we've conducted 4 sweep operations. And we provided the sweep operations in San Bernardino County. We've conducted them in Placer County, the Bay Area, Fresno County. And we've also begun the steps in planning a sting operation. And what I'll say is it's expected in summer of 2024. And that's pretty much all I'll discuss about that to preserve the integrity of that sting operation. And now I take you to the middle of that page where we provide information on our cease letters. We've continued to mail out cease operation letters to businesses who are not licensed with the Bureau or registered to let them know that they're supposed to be and that they need to stop operating. So we've sent those letters out, letting businesses know. We work with them. Usually after sending a letter, a business will contact us, and then we communicate with our licensing unit and connect them so that we're working together to get that information to the business owners. Because sometimes they don't know. And so we want to give them an opportunity to get educated and come into compliance before we have to address it with a citation, as long as we're getting cooperation. So we've issued 77 cease letters. Out of the 77, 41 have been to household movers, 9 have been to home furnishing and thermal insulation businesses, and 27 have been to electronic and appliance repair businesses. If you look at the numbers, it seems like we're sending a lot less to home furnishing and thermal insulation. And if you ask me why, I'd say it's probably because we get a lot of storefronts for home furnishing and thermal insulation. So instead of sending them a cease letter, we might visit their location and educate them instead of sending a cease letter. And so not necessarily we'll cite them, but we'll provide an inspection and share information with them to connect them with the Bureau. Now I bring you to the bottom of page 41, where we provide consumer business assistance. And I'll say we just listed some examples, highlights of some of the enforcement activity that we've conducted. But I will say, because of the programs we have a database that collects information for the electronic and appliance repair businesses and home furnishings and thermal insulation. And Shelby was able to run a report and provide us with a total of $66,825 of savings to the public And what that means is that it's work that the enforcement program has done to help consumers so that they can get maybe a refund on a product or get a replacement product. And so we document that information on the system. We haven't been able to collect that information for household movers just because we don't have a database, but hope to sooner someday, I'm not sure which. All right, and so you could read through the rest of 41 and 42 or some of the highlights for the other cases. And next I bring you to the top of page 43, where I'll review the statistics and the table. And I'll show you that on this page, we provide the number of complaints received, where investigations were initiated. And you'll see a difference between this table and the tables that we've shared in the past, that now we have a 2-year period that we're providing the table for to show a little bit more of trends that we're noticing. We have this information accessible to us, but now we're providing it to you so that you can see a larger picture. I will bring your attention to the household mover section. If you notice the closed without investigation, there's zeros from October 1st, 2022 through now. And the reason for that is that any complaint we receive for household movers, there are no cases that we close without investigation. And it's because for household movers, it's a little bit more complicated to determine if we have jurisdiction or not. So rather than having that issue looked at intake, we assign all cases to investigators, and then they'll do the digging. So for example, a case that would be closed without investigation generally could be something like a move from Oregon to New York. And so you're thinking that probably didn't cross through California, but we've learned that sometimes a load will be brought to California. And so we want to make sure that an investigator looks into that before closing it. Next, I'll take you to page 44, where we continued with the 2-year picture of our investigations. And we've combined both the desk and field investigations because I think that was just confusing in the past. And also our units are working closely together. So what I mean by that is we don't have a desk investigation team and a field investigation team, and we divide cases just, it's not, I'd say like robotic. What we do is we evaluate each case when they come in, and we determine if they can be handled at the desk level or if a visit is needed. Also, it depends on the volume of the cases we receive. Sometimes the compliance unit is handling a certain type of like lab failures, so we have some staff tied to those, so we might assign more of those cases to the field. And we support each other that way between the compliance unit and the field so that we're providing the protection to consumers no matter where we are in our staffing and the flow of complaints that come in. So you could see through those numbers the amount of complaints we receive, how many are closed for all 3 of our programs. Next, I'll take you to page 45, where we provide, at the top, we provide a table with the citation and fine amounts, and we provide those for each program. So those are the number of citations issued and the total number of, or the fine amounts, the value of those. And again, we provide it for the 2-year period so you can see a bigger picture. And then new to our enforcement program statistics information is that at the last advisory council, we were asked about our enforcement action with lab failures. So we provided a table, and it's a small table because we've only started to track this information since January of 2024, but through the end of March of 2024. And these are the cases that are being processed by our compliance unit. We had Scott Raboy, who's now with the lab, who started that, and also Rachel Lanzone, who have been working they've been working really hard at not only processing these lab failures, but also developing letters so that we can have a consistent letter that goes out to all businesses. Also issuing citations and orders of abatement, which is like a plan of correction for the business. So we have consistency. We've also been working with Eileen, who's provided a lot of support for us, and then the lab. We are having monthly meetings with them to discuss these cases and what we need. We've also developed tables that we've shared amongst the units so that if the compliance unit is working on a lab failure, then the lab wants to find out where we are in that process. Jacob can access that table and share the information. So if you can see, since January of 2024, we have 26 cases that were completed. 7 of those cases were advisory letters that we issued to a business letting them know why they failed and what needs to be done. 19 of those were citations that were issued with fines of $17,850. That concludes my enforcement statistic. And so I'd like to open it for questions for advisory council in the room.
Thank you. I have some questions. So first of all, you mentioned that several cases have been referred to the Attorney General's office, and you said for revocation. Why does that action need to be handled by the Attorney General's office and not in-house revocation?
Okay, so the Attorney General's office handles, they're not cases like we refer that now they handle. That's not, I guess the word referral is being used loosely. They handle the legal process for that. So we work with them. I thought you were going to take a breath.
No, go.
So we work with them and they draft the accusation and they provide the accusation to us. We serve it. So we work jointly with them. It's not that they're taking over the case. It's still our case, but they are our legal counsel handling that case.
Yeah, so basically, Helen is our staff counsel in the room, like when we're trying to figure out something we want to do with the policy. Christy is our regulatory counsel when we're making alterations to the household mover enforcement regulation. When we want to essentially pull, I'm going to say license because it's across the board. So whether it's permit, registration, or license, you have a right to a hearing and due process. And what is happening is the Attorney General's office is our prosecuting attorney. So it's still our case. And the reason I want to spend just a minute on this is because this will be important for the council. We are doing more. Again, we're going to continue to call it a referral because that's what we call it internally. When we refer a case to the Attorney General's office, it costs money, and so I'm actually tracking it because that you will see a change in our budget based on the amount of referrals we're doing, which is more than we have done in the past. They essentially represent us. So, for example, the one I can think of right now, we just got a default decision on something that Raleigh handled. Raleigh would essentially go to that hearing. He would serve as a witness, but the Attorney General's office is essentially examining various witnesses, collecting evidence. In this particular case, the person didn't show up, so we have a default. And then when the Office of Administrative Hearing is done with that case, an ALJ, an administrative law judge, has a proposed decision that then goes to my chain of command for review. And actually, Helen just completed a couple for us. Yeah, absolutely, go.
This is Helen Joffrey, attorney for the Bureau. So with a Bureau, the actual head of a Bureau is the director. And so the director issues the final decision for any Bureau matter. And so at that point, I am actually separated from the enforcement process so that I can advise the director for the final decision. Much like for a board, I would advise the board on the final decision, but I cannot be involved in the enforcement process. The government code requires that the Deputy Attorney General serve as the prosecutor for these matters unless there's a specific exemption purpose. But it's called a referral also because the Attorney General could take a look at it and decide that there's not enough there to support either a finding of, I don't know if we do preponderance or we do, I can't think of the other one, but clear and convincing. But either way, it doesn't, the investigation doesn't meet the burden, and so they can send it back to the Bureau to add additional information. So there is some coordination, but at the enforcement and through the prosecution phase, the Deputy Attorney General becomes their counsel of record for enforcement so that I am isolated enough to support the director to make the final decision on licensing.
And I'll just add on a different note, which I think is part of what your question may be asking too. We would never pursue revocation unless it was an egregious circumstance.
Oh, no, yeah, no, I have no issues with that. And, you know, I guess what I'm hearing is, because with the PUC, we had a very different plan, and they had ALJs on staff, so that's probably why that happened that way. But those hearings were also public events, and we were noticed of any of those hearings that transpired. And I'm wondering if in the future, at these revocations, that we would be noticed, that we could be noticed as a party to come to participate or to sit there or whatever to.
There's nothing that prevents us from doing that. So that's publicly available information. Once essentially the accusation is filed online, actually all this working with our DCA IT team right now to make sure that once an accusation is filed, you will see it in a license lookup. So, I mean, we can talk about it. There's a couple moving parts to that, but we can figure something out.
Okay, I appreciate that. The other thing.
I will also add on that they are also public meetings, and you can go on to the Office of Administrative Law website and you can search, but you would have to know.
That's pretty cumbersome.
Yeah. But so I'm not saying it's a smooth process, but if we are aware that there is a hearing, it is publicly accessible. That provision has not changed.
And I will also say that, and I'm not going to steal Joanne's thunder, but we've also been working closely with Joanne on getting some of this information on the website so that we can, in the future, have accusations on our website and some of the decisions in order.
Yeah, I would tell you that the decisions, publicizing those decisions is one of the strongest enforcement tools you can have. And because we republish that stuff and people call all the time and say, in the old days when the PUC used to do these hearings, and they say, oh my God, I didn't know you were supposed to do this or do that. So I think that there's an added benefit to making those public records accessible.
Absolutely. And I would also like to say, you know, Joanne's been putting information out there for our social media. We are hoping to do some press releases also. So the more followers we have on those platforms, it would really get the word out.
And for the record, I wrote an email to Steve asking him to retweet something. I never thought I'd write an email like that in my life.
I did it. Yeah. So, and then on another issue that was concerning to me the first time I read it, now reread, maybe it's not concerning at all. It's on March of 2024, there was an initial damage claim of $150. And then after some investigation, deficiencies were discovered and the mediated settlement is $750. So I think we're mixing a couple things here. The actual claim settlement itself is outside the scope of authority of the Bureau.
Right.
You agree with this, right?
Right.
Okay. But then using that, weaponizing other things for that it has a strange feeling to me. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I just have a question about like, okay, we pulled them over for this, and then we ended up doing that. So, I mean, there was deficiencies in the paperwork that allowed you to go back and say, hey, you may want to settle with these guys because it'd be in your own best interest. Does that summarize it?
Yeah, and so that is part of what it says that we are able to do is to discuss and that's how we help consumers, sometimes by mediating and communicating with the business. And we do provide outreach and education, but that's why cooperation is so important. If they're cooperating and maybe they made a mistake and they want to fix it, we're going to stay back and let that happen. But if there's deficiencies, then we need to address them, whether that be by outreach, education, or by issuing a citation.
Thank you.
And then for all three of our programs, we essentially have factors in how we're going to levy a fine, if we're going to levy a fine. And when we're having that mediation conversation, we highlight that, because one of the factors we take into account is how far have you gone to make the consumer whole. And so that's the sort of, for lack of a better term, because I don't think we're being cute, but to get to your point, there's a wink, wink, nudge, nudge there, like, fix this problem, and we'll certainly take it into account when we're actually looking at your overall violations.
Yeah. Just one other point, it's just my own comment and my own opinion, is FMCSA has a database. They have a terrific, I won't even say terrific, they have a database. The other aspects of the FMCSA, I do not hold in the same regard that I hold the Bureau in. And I've dealt with them for a long time as well, and I've made that public comment to them. So I just would encourage you to keep your own culture and maintain your own policies in dealing with it, because I would say the enforcement level here, even in its infancy, is superior to the enforcement level at FMCSA.
So the other thing I will say is, when all is having those conversations, I'm saying this so I'll be the one that gets in trouble. I think the example we're most excited about is Texas, which seems to be very robust. And so FMCSA is essentially tracking what the other states are doing, and that's what we're looking at, if that makes any sense.
It does. It does. And Texas have a relationship with them, and yes. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Question on the citations that you assessed. What's our rate of getting the money?
Well, I'll tell you that it's not great, but we're working on it. This is a part of what our case management unit is going to be working on. So like I mentioned earlier, we have one of those positions filled, and we're working on the rest. And so we are working on taking steps to recover that. We'll also be working with Sue Robinson from our administrative unit to create a contract that we need to take additional steps to recover that money. But it has not been great. And but I see that changing, and that's what we're working towards.
So Bert, I wrote a note, and I want you to note if anyone hits me under the table as I say this aloud.
I'm getting ready.
I already made a note. We're gonna, for the November meeting. Yeah, I already feel the heat on both sides. We're gonna do statistics on collected as well. We're gonna add that.
That's going in my little book.
Yeah, it was already on my book, but yeah. And then my guess is you're gonna see a long period of outstanding. But what we're also doing is putting something that I call a flag on someone's license, so you can't renew until you pay your fine. Yeah.
And that's something we're doing now.
Yeah.
So that's something that Blanca's been working on. And not only are we putting those flags, we're sending letters to those businesses, letting them know you've not paid your fine, and so we're flagging your license and you cannot renew.
So movers are the quickest because they got to file quarterlies, whereas in your case, it could conceivably be going like 22, 23 months, but yeah.
Yeah, we're excited about that. Any other questions in the room? Any questions on the web?
We are open for public comment on item 10. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand. We will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Before we continue, do any council members online have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Back on to join.
Okay, we can continue.
All right, so we'll move on to agenda item number 11, which is going to be Joanne Van. This is her first meeting. Be nice, Bert.
Hey, hi everyone. My name is Joanne Van. I am the new content manager here at the Bureau. I will be the point person for everything related to content strategy and creation. And I will be covering the communications and education updates starting on page 47. In the few months I've been with the Bureau, we've increased our outreach and communications efforts in a few areas, one of them being video. With the launch of online quarterly reports for household movers on Connect, a video was released highlighting the system's key features and best practices for how to navigate the system. This is the first video that the Bureau has produced in-house, and we would have loved to play the video during this meeting today, but we're unable to, so I recommend you all check it out on your own time when you're able to. The video is on DCA's YouTube channel, which is where all of the Bureau's videos live, and it was also shared to the Bureau's website and social media platforms, which includes Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X, which is formerly known as Twitter. We also have another video in the works for consumers with tips on hiring a household mover and how to avoid scams related to that, and that is expected to be released later this year. The Bureau is continuing our work on publications. An infographic was created as part of promotions for the launch of online quarterly reports for movers and holders. That also includes instructions for registering and how to link an existing license. We are currently working on a consumer publication with helpful information to know before signing a service contract. That will be published in English and Spanish, and it covers the jargon used in transactions, consumer rights, and what to do if they encounter a problem. Since our last council meeting, a publication was posted to the website with an overview of the Bureau, as well as consumer protection tips for the various industries we regulate. And you can find that on pages 52 and 53 of this packet in both English and Spanish. Moving on from publications, the Bureau now has a QR code that houses all of our most popular links, including the website, links to applications, and our social media platforms as well. This QR code simplifies how people can access the Bureau's most popular links, and it's used by field staff when educating businesses on licensing outreach events so that consumers can easily find the Bureau's links. And the website that the QR code leads to is also placed in all of our social media profiles at the very top. Speaking of social media, we started posting on all of our platforms at least once a week in English and Spanish, and the content that gets posted there ranges from week to week because we want to be able to focus on all of our audience types and industries as well. Some examples of topics posted include job listings, industry advisories, how-to guides, consumer resources, and Bureau updates. On page 48, you'll find a table with our social media numbers from January to April of this year. And on page 49, you'll find examples of graphics posted. If you want a more up-to-date or detailed view of our social media posts, I recommend you check out our profiles. Website continues to be a big focus for the Bureau as well. A banner was added to the homepage of the website as part of promotion efforts for the online quarterly reports for movers, and it acts as a direct link to Connect. We're also working to simplify the process for submitting a complaint for consumers. Currently, there are two separate forms that are being used, one for complaints related to household movers and one for all other industries. And so we're working to consolidate both those forms into one so that it works across all industries. We're also working to update how citation data and disciplinary action information is shown on the website. We want to make the presentation of the information clearer for those navigating the website and also define a process internally for maintaining and updating the system. We do plan to do a full revamp of the website in collaboration with DCA to make it easier for visitors to navigate and find information they need while still maintaining ADA compliance for the website. And I will share more information on the website or the full revamp of the website at the next council meeting. From October 2023 to May 2024, the Bureau participated in 8 outreach events, 7 of which were Senior Scam Stoppers in collaboration with the Contractor State License Board, and one Financial Literacy webinar hosted by the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. I'd like to take a moment to thank everyone who was involved in these events the past few months, in particular Erin Bertoni for her help with coordinating the events, as well as our speakers Oliver Manila, Levi Jacoby, Nancy Torres-Mancia, Larry Perlman, Tracy Cortina, Destiny Wells, Brian Kaut, Alana Dubois, and Maria Rodriguez. And as our staff numbers grow, we are committed to building internal communications for promoting transparency and collaboration. And we have been distributing an internal newsletter monthly to keep staff informed on the Bureau's activities and industry trends. That's all I have. Are there any questions from council members in the room?
I have a question for enforcement staff. Is this part of your presentation as well?
It is, but feel free.
Okay. So on the essential consumer tips page, the second bullet point says, for moves within California, we recommend your contract include a not to exceed price. That's not really a recommendation. It's a requirement.
You're right, and we've had a back and forth with council. So I can talk to you more offline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions in the room? All right, online?
We are now open for public comment on agenda item 11. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of your screen. Dial in users dial *3 to raise a hand. We will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes.
And sorry, Steve. It was before Helen became our counsel, so we'll revisit it. We'll talk with you. All right. With that, I think we're going to turn it over again to Eileen Yaps, our new policy manager, her first meeting.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eileen Yaps. I'm the new policy manager for the Bureau. I will be providing the legislative and policy updates on the agenda. What I'm going to do is first cover the first 2 items on the agenda, and then I will be breaking for comments and questions. If you'd like to follow along, the materials start on page 54. So first, regarding the household movers enforcement regulation, I'm happy to share that we are in the final stages of the production phase of the rulemaking process. What that means is that it's the phase directly before publication. The rule text has been finalized, and we're working with our regulatory counsel to complete the other documents, the other publication documents. What we're hoping is to achieve publication by this summer or during this summer. Next on the list is the upholstered furniture and bedding law label regulatory proposal. As you all may recall, the Bureau shared an earlier draft of this proposal at the June 2023 Advisory Council meeting. We received feedback on that draft. We revisited it and conducted another review, and then we made additional changes to it. So a summary of the changes to this draft, as well as the updated draft, are included in your materials. The summary starts on page 56, and the draft starts on page 58. We also shared this revised draft at the IABFLO conference, as well as individuals who requested to be on our distribution list. Our council member, Bert Grimes, has also had a chance, I believe, to review some of the draft, if not all of it. And we'd like to thank you, Bert, for already providing feedback on this draft. And specifically, one of the things that you have requested so far is to retitle the template labels. So currently they're titled type numbers 1, 2, 3, et cetera, and we will be replacing that and titling them as types A, B, C. The draft that you see in your materials does not include this update yet, but we will be implementing it. And what we're really hoping to achieve with the changes is to make these regulations easier to identify, understand, and follow. So I'm just going to briefly go through what these changes are, which again are described in your summary on page 56. And that includes that we have cleaned up and reorganized the content. This includes updating all definitions, or many of the definitions, and we've consolidated them in one section. We removed the filling material descriptions from the regulations, and we're hoping to place them in a glossary that will be available on our website. The labeling requirements have been updated, clarified, and made consistent. That includes that labels will no longer have to state percentages, except for labels that are on plumage products. We're also proposing a new digital law label, and that new regulation would require a digital law label to be placed or to be displayed for each product that is sold or offered for sale online. We've made significant updates to the template labels, and we've reordered them, we've streamlined them, and they've all been moved to a new Appendix A. And you can see from your summary which current labels are going to be replaced by the labels that we're proposing. And finally, the sanitization label has been updated, and we have also created new flammability labels, and these labels are in the proposed new appendices B and C. What we're hoping to do once these regulations have been touched on earlier is to create fillable template labels that can be downloaded online. And we're really trying to move towards promoting compliance and also promoting consumer protection so that consumers are aware of what they can be looking for and what those things mean. And we welcome any feedback from the council on this draft. So at this point, what I'd like to do is to open it up for any comments or questions for council members in the room.
On the enforcement policy for household good movers, the public period for comment that's when it goes public.
Correct.
And what is the timeline for that?
So we are required to provide 45 days.
And where is notice of that information provided? Will be provided on your website?
Yes, correct. Yes. All the materials, including the rule text, as well as the documents related to the rule text, those are the documents we're finalizing right now, will be available on our website.
And I'll say what I always say, Steve, which is, I love compliments, but don't give me a formal compliment, because then we have to respond to it.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Not a comment.
My only comment is, yeah, on this regulation right now as a draft, I see a few little things need to be changed.
Sure.
I'd like to discuss the pillows with you for bolsters. I thought that was something we kind of put away back on the list.
That's probably my fault, Bert, but yeah, we can talk.
Okay. I think it's going to be a lot easier and simpler, and I think it's going to help in compliance for the manufacturers, whoever's using law labels. You know, not so confusing. So looking forward to that.
One other question, I'm sorry. So on the enforcement policy, could there potentially be things that conflict with the Household Good Movers Act, or none of that conflicts with the Household Good Movers Act?
The enforcement policy that Paula did discuss? Or are you talking about the regulations?
The regulations.
No conflict. We can't promulgate rules that would conflict with the Household Movers Act.
Okay.
Just more specificity.
Yeah. Kind of like requiring people to do the not to exceed.
Hence,
Clearly written in the House of Representatives.
hey, I hear you. Once those rules take effect, the publication will be updated. I promise you.
Any other questions in the room? And any questions or comments from council online? Okay, and we'd like to open it up at this time for public comment.
We are open for public comment on agenda item 12. Or did you have somebody in the room first?
No one in
No one in the room.
My apologies. I heard something. And anyway, we are open for public comment on agenda item 12. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of your screen. Dial in user style *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. It's going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes. Okay, so I will continue and complete the updates on the last 3 items on the agenda. What I'm going to do is first cover SB 814 and SB 244 and then end with AB 1985. So SB 814 and SB 244 were covered quite extensively, I believe, at the last advisory council meeting. So what I will be doing today is just to provide updates on our implementation efforts. SB 814, as you may recall, was the sunset legislation that became effective January 1st this year. And as far as implementation, back in December 2023, we posted an industry advisory on our website, which highlighted the impact of SB 814. Earlier this year, we provided training to managers and staff, and we also updated and posted new versions of our law books in January. And those law books now include the new and amended language from SB 814. And finally, which was covered earlier, we're in the process of consolidating the Bureau's 3 funds to the Household Goods and Services Fund. And then next, regarding SB 244, SB 244 is also known as the Right to Repair Act. This becomes effective on July 1st of this year. This new law requires manufacturers of electronic or appliance products to provide documentation, parts, and tools to owners, service, and repair facilities and service dealers so that they can diagnose, maintain, or repair those products. What is intended by this new law is that it will provide a fair marketplace for repairing electronic and appliance products and to prohibit manufacturers from making third-party repairs more difficult. On page 127, you can find an industry advisory that we will be posting later this year when it's closer to the effective date of this law. And this advisory provides more detailed information about SB 244, including the types of products that it covers. In addition to posting this advisory, we also earlier this year provided training to managers and staff, and we will be Joanne will be conducting social media outreach. And finally, AB 1985, this was a bill. This bill, at the time that we prepared our materials, it was still in active/pending status. What it would have done was to impact what's called this Home Solicitation Sales Act and redefine the definition for home solicitation contract. But since preparing and distributing our materials, we've learned from the sponsor that this bill is now dead. So, but we welcome any questions about it or concerns if you have anything. So at this time, I'd like to open it up to council members in the room. Okay. Council members online. Okay, and we'd like to open it up for public comment.
We are open for public comment on the remainder of agenda item 12. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial in user style *3 to raise a hand. We will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Eileen. We've got one other item that just came up in the last week, and I figured I'd just mention it so that people were aware. This was a recent amendment long after we put our packet and the agenda together. It's known, and I believe Toby referenced it earlier. It's known as AB 2210, and I apologize, it's by Assembly Member Petrie Norris, and it has to do with ignition interlock devices. I just want to make everyone aware of it. In this space of ignition interlock devices, there's been several pilot programs. This is the most recent pilot program, essentially, is what's being proposed. And it's actually pretty substantial. It's going to involve 5 counties, our most populous counties, really. Los Angeles, Orange, be requiring an ignition interlock device be installed after the first DUI offense for individuals who are basically given a DUI within those counties. I essentially am just going to read verbatim what the Department of Consumer Affairs provided the Assembly Appropriations Committee, just because this isn't on the agenda. And so I'm just going to read this aloud. Costs, and then it puts in parentheses, special funds of an unknown amount to DCA to impose assessments on non-compliant IID manufacturers and manufacturers' agents. DCA expects this workload to be minor and absorbable. So we do expect an increase out in industry, but we don't expect to see a workload increase for ourselves with installers at this time. Does anyone have any concerns? I'm happy to, we'll certainly provide an update at our November meeting. On to agenda item number 13. Again, anyone's more than welcome to send me an email, and I'm happy to put this on a meeting if anyone would like to discuss it in further detail. The agenda item number 13, I just wanted to confirm that November 14th still works for our council members for our second meeting of the year. I'm just going to kind of look around the room. Looks like it's good here.
I wanted to advise that I do have a conflict that day. I do have another board meeting, if that is relevant.
Okay.
We could attempt to find an alternative council, or if not, then we may wish to change the date.
Got it, understood. So what I'll do, I think, just because I know we're so close to Thanksgiving at that point, how are your calendars looking? Are they pretty tight? I may do what's called a doodle, which is, I guess, Google does a thing where you can talk about other dates. But while Bert and Steve in the room are looking at their calendars, I'm just going to go to those online. Any council members online? Is November 14th a problem?
Yeah, I already have it on there for that day, so if we move it, that's fine too. But I'm blocked already.
Hi, Justin. This is Sarah. I had it on the 14th as well, and it's in person, correct, in Sacramento?
Yeah, we'll probably attempt to do a hybrid again, but yes, it will be in the Sacramento area. You're more than welcome to come on up. So I think we'll keep the 14th at the moment, but I'll check in with everyone to see if there's some room for movement. The one other question I had, I think the answer is keep it at 10 a.m. Does anyone want this to start earlier? I know for flights it's usually 10 a.m. Okay, 10 a.m. it is. Just by in the room.
At 4 a.m. to make this, you know.
Right? Well, I kind of like the idea of Steve being at the airport at 4 a.m. to be honest.
When I fly from San Diego, it's the similar thing. I'm at the airport. The earliest flight gets me there just in time for the 10 a.m. So.
Got it. Okay, perfect. All right, we'll keep it at 10 a.m. With that, I will move on to agenda item number 14. I'm going to take public comment on all of this in just a moment. So bear with me, just because typically we don't have a lot here. On future agenda items, this meeting we were doing a lot of cleanup, and we were really excited to introduce you to several of our new managers. So that was sort of the focus of our meeting this time. If you recall, our last meeting we had a focus on ignition interlock devices. I'm thinking probably a focus in November on service contracts, but I also just wanted to reach out to the council and see if there were any topics you wanted to discuss or any sort of focus you wanted to have for the meeting in November. So I'll open it up to Bert and Steve in the room first.
Good. I'd like that service contract.
Service contracts. Okay, all right, and then I'll open it up to members online. Tom, let me know how you feel about that.
I mean, that's fine. What is the, I guess, the content you're thinking about talking about?
So typically what I would do is we would sort of do a summary of kind of how it works in California. Similar to what I did with Dan and Toby, Eileen and I would sort of talk with you, Tom, about what you're seeing in the rest of the country,
Sure.
What seems to be working for you, what isn't, and then just talking about anything you'd like to see change in California, because it's just a good discussion piece, and anything you think's working that we shouldn't change.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments from council members online?
Justin, I had a question.
Yeah.
Is there a way, and this is more of an administrative question, with the different presenters that come in the different sections, is there a way we could have the section cover, for example, agenda item 8, and then it says licensing program update, and then we could have the presenter's name on that cover sheet?
Oh, so like right now when it says item 14, future agenda items, like have another line that just has the individual's name?
I find that helpful. I don't know if others would agree. I always like to kind of put a name to the topic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just wanted to make sure I understood you correctly. I'm just writing a note.
It's funny the things that you don't speak up about, but all day today I've been hovering my mouse over the different speakers and then writing the names down because it's all new people.
That's what I was doing too.
Yeah. But I wasn't going to mention anything of it, but it's fun. It's that would be.
Well, I wasn't so particular. Sometimes I get in trouble at my office about being too particular about certain things.
I'm not. That's an easy fix. We're happy to do that, Sarah.
Thank you.
Any additional comment from members? All right, David, if you could open it up to public comment for agenda item 13 and 14, please.
We are open for public comment on agenda items 13 and 14. So if you'd like to make a comment on the meeting dates or future agenda items, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of your screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. As usual, we're going to take just a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. It's been a particularly lively bunch today. Seeing no request for public comment, I think we're ready to move forward.
All right. Well, everyone, I appreciate your participation today. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you in November. We are adjourned.
Thank you,
Justin.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thanks, everyone.